Hey guys, are you selling your house and you're waiting for the offers and start negotiating? Well, good, because in this video we're going to go over a few tips on how to sell your house in the Middle Georgia area and show you a few tricks on negotiating the best deal for your house. So let's get busy. Hey guys, I'm Chris, your real estate problem solver. I'm a real estate agent and an investor in the Middle Georgia area. So if you're selling your house and you need some help, make sure to reach out to me and I'll help you get the best deal for your house that you can. Now in this video, we're going to talk about the fun stuff. Got the house listed, you're starting to take in offers, and now the fun part begins where you get to do the negotiating and work a deal that's going to be beneficial to you and your buyers. So let's get started by going over a purchase and sale agreement, and we'll go over a few tips and tricks about the different aspects of the purchase contract, and you can see what different aspects that you can negotiate and a few little tricks that you can kind of give and take and end up with the best deal that you possibly can. Okay, first things first. If we've got your house on the market and we're not getting any offers, then chances are your price is too high. Even if you've got it just a little bit high, a lot of people will put in an offer and may not be the full price offer, but they'll at least try. Now think of it as selling a car. If you're out shopping for a car and you've already done your research, you've been looking around, and you know that the car you're looking for is say $30,000. Well, if you find that same car and somebody's wanting $45,000, are you even going to make an offer? Exactly. So if you are priced a little bit too high, some people may not even make an offer, may not even attempt to make an offer. If you're a little bit high, some people will make an offer that's going to be less than your asking price. And then of course, if you've got the house positioned properly, you should have at least more than one offer right off the bat. So that will give you a kind of a gauge on if you're selling your house. If you're not getting any offers, then you need to think about the price or think about what it is that you're offering for the price that you're asking. Okay, so if you're selling your house and you've got an offer on the table, then congratulations. The first part of getting the house priced and getting a product that somebody's willing to make an offer on is most of the battle. So now that you've got an offer, that means you've got somebody that's interested in the house. Chances are there's probably going to be somebody else that's interested in the house too. So don't think that if this is the only offer that you've gotten, don't think that this is going to be the only offer that you get, okay? So relax. You've got an offer on the table. Now it's time to get down to business. So when you're making a counter offer, first look over the contract. There's a couple aspects that are going to be up for grabs. Of course, the purchase price is going to be one of them. Another one is going to be the closing costs. How much is the seller willing to pay in closing costs? That would be you. Okay, how much of the money that you are getting in that purchase price are you going to give up to pay for some of the closing costs? Now the closing costs can consist of a couple different things. Number one, it's going to be the attorney's fees, transfer fees, wiring costs, origination fees from the buyer's mortgage, prepayment funds for their escrow account. So there's a lot of different things involved in the closing costs. So traditionally, the closing costs are up for grabs. Either you can pay all the closing costs, you can pay part of the closing costs, or you can dig your heels in and tell the buyers you're going to pay all the closing costs, period. Now another part that you're going to be negotiating later on is going to be your repairs. When the buyer orders an inspection, the inspector is going to come out and he's going to look over the house. Now if you did your homework right, you went through your house, you found all the little knickknacks and little problems that were with the house, you fixed them up so the house is jammed up and you don't have to worry about any of that. But the inspector is going to find something. He has to, because he has to justify his fees. So he's going to show that there is something wrong with the house. Now that could be negligible, or he could have found something that was significant. Now if it's significant, then you've got some conversations to have. You could tell them that you still want to sell the house for the price that you've got it, and the price of the house is based on the adjustment of somebody else doing those repairs. Now whether you go that route or you decide, you know what, I want full retail, but there's a problem that I wasn't aware of, so I will pay for that before we go to closing. That's completely up to you, but it is up in the air to negotiate. Now, one more tip about the repairs to be done to the house. If they negotiate major repairs, those might be something that you have no choice but to fix before closing. But the cosmetic stuff or the little knick-knack stuff, peeling paint or rotted fascia board or a rip in the storm window, those things you can probably get fixed for cheaper yourself than the discount that they would be asking to do it themselves. So it's been my experience that usually the little knick-knack stuff that people want fixed up, I would go ahead and give it to them, because you can get it done either yourself or you can hire a handyman to come take care of it for cheaper than the amount that they would want taken off the house for them to do it. The next item up for bid in negotiating your offer is going to be the closing attorney. Traditionally, most people, whoever's paying the closing costs or paying the majority of the closing costs, they get to choose who the closing attorney is going to be. Now, if you're dealing with somebody that's out of town like I do, I've got wholesale deals where Atlanta wholesalers are trying to do a closing with an attorney in Atlanta. Well, that's not very reasonable, and it's a little too out of touch. I like to be able to walk into an attorney's office and actually shake their hand, simply because if something goes awry, then you've got the attorney sitting right there and we can get everything taken care of. So it's up to you, but normally I would usually argue to have a close attorney in the local area to do the closing. Now, if they insist on having their own attorney do the closing and the attorney is somewhere else, this trick I always use. Okay, you want to pay for that attorney? You go right ahead. But we want our attorney here locally. We'll pay enough to cover their expenses, and we're going to have them do the closing, and your attorney can just check over the paperwork. It usually works out better. That way, if something does go wrong, you've got somebody on your side. Now, since we're talking about attorneys, let's talk a little bit about Georgia law. Now, I am not an attorney, and this is for educational purposes only, but typically, when you go to a closing, the attorney's priority of loyalty. Now, this is saying when things go sideways, if there's any dispute, the attorney has to side with the lender. The lender gets preferential treatment. If anything goes wrong, the attorney is going to represent the lender first. If there's not a lender involved with it, then the buyer is going to be number 2. So if there's no lender, the buyer is going to get the preferential treatment from the attorney, and then the seller last. So, like I said, if they insist on an out-of-town attorney, then it would definitely behoove you to go ahead and spend the money and pay for an attorney that is definitely retained by you. That way they represent your interests. Now, another part that you might want to consider when you're selling your house, you've got the offer on the table, but you haven't signed it yet, so it's not a binding agreement. One thing that you might want to consider is how much earnest money are you getting from the buyer. Now, we've had multiple offer scenarios where the buyer was offering $1,000 earnest money and then another one offering $5,000. Me personally, I don't really care too much about how much earnest money they're putting down. The earnest money is nothing more than a good faith gesture of how serious they are. So I've done multiple offers before, but when I'm putting an offer on 5 different houses, $1,000 could lock up $5,000. So I would end up putting down an earnest money of maybe $100 or no earnest money at all. I mean, you don't have to put one down if you don't want to. We've actually got a deal right now going through that the buyer is not asking for any due diligence, and he's not asking for to offer any earnest money, and my seller agreed to it, partially because they're familiar with who the buyer is. But there again, I've done the same thing and had no issues. Now, the negotiating part that I would consider when it comes to the money aspect of it is who is their loan program with. Now, not necessarily talking about the lender themselves, but are they coming to the table with a conventional loan? Are they coming to the table with an FHA loan? Or are they coming to the table with a VA loan? Or even a USDA loan? Now, certain areas of the rural outside of Warner Robins does have USDA programs where they can get high percentage financing for the house that they're buying. So if you're selling the house, the main concern that you have is Is this person very interested, and is this person going to follow through with the purchase of the house? Now, when you're talking about the loan program, the conventional loan means that the buyer is probably going to be bringing in somewhere around 20% of their own money into the deal. With that being said, conventional loans, when they go out to do the appraisal, the appraiser has their own list of things that they have to check, just like the home inspector. But the home inspector is specifically for the buyer. The appraiser is specifically for the lender. And if they find anything on their checklist that they don't like, they're going to report it back to the lender, and the lender is going to request that that certain repair be done before it goes to closing. Not so much of a problem with conventional loans. FHA is a little more stringent than that. They may find things that they don't like that they want repaired before you go to the closing table. And you, as the seller, has to decide whether or not you're willing to pay for it, or if you want the buyer to pay for it before they go to closing. Now keep in mind, a lot of buyers are a little skittish, well, most buyers are pretty skittish about putting money into a house that they don't actually own yet. So this might be where you want to negotiate a discount on the purchase price, or call a contractor and see what it's going to take to get the repairs done. So if you do end up in a multiple offer situation, you as the seller are looking to get the most eligible buyer as possible that's going to follow through all the way to the closing table. So with that said, conventional loan, well, take that back. Cash is going to be king. I mean, cash is always king. If they're actually coming in with dollars, then you know they don't have to worry about getting approved for the loan. Conventional loan is going to be second best, then FHA, and then VA. Now, of course, if you've got a house that is on the up and up, it's less than 10 years old, you've gone through and inspected everything is jammed up, then you don't have really anything to worry about. But it is something to consider. Now, the next part of the negotiating table is going to be the due diligence period. Now, most retail sellers are going to get offers that have a due diligence period anywhere from 7 days to 10 days to 14 days. Now, of course, you want to get to the closing table as fast as possible, but this part isn't really a big deal. This part is where they're kicking the tires, they're checking the windows, they're looking behind the bushes, they're checking over the house to make sure that this is really the home that they want. If they go through the due diligence period and you don't have any repairs that they are requesting to be done, and you get past the due diligence date, then technically you're bound. They have to buy, you have to sell, and the earnest money is sitting at the attorney's office or sitting with whoever is holding the earnest funds. By the contract, if they back out, then you get the earnest money as liquid damages for wasting your time. I understand that. But honestly, if they don't want the house, your time would be better spent getting them out of the way and getting the house back on the market so we can find another buyer and get the house sold. Because most people that are selling their house, a lot of my sellers have already bought another house and now they got 2 mortgages. So they're under a time crunch. So we can make them pay by breach of contract, but that would be a lot of time and energy, and there's not a real good chance that we can make them buy the house. So if they've put the earnest money, and this is why I suggest to put the earnest money with the attorney, because the attorney is an unbiased party. The earnest money can be held by me as a selling agent, the buyer's agent brokerage, or the attorney that's going to do the closing. So it's a kind of more of a scare tactic that once you get through the due diligence period, they're locked in and they have to buy the house. Well, really, they don't have to buy the house. Me personally, if they don't want the house, I can get the house back on the market and get it to another buyer. And usually if I've had a multi-offer scenario, I can be on the phone with the next buyer in 10 minutes. I just need them to get the paperwork signed for the termination, get out of the way so we can get to the next one. So don't worry about the due diligence period so much. Now, one thing that I do when I am as a buyer, and be aware of this, what I'll do is I'll put it at the bottom. Due diligence period for 7 days is considered to be business days. Now what that does is 7 days means 7 calendar days. If you put business days at the bottom, that means the weekends don't count, which is understandable because usually you can't get an inspector out there, you can't get an appraiser out there on the weekends, so they shouldn't count. But it is a little tactic to get past the due diligence period and get them locked in. There again, they don't have to buy even after the due diligence period, but it's more of a mental thing because now their earnest money and their inspection money that they pay for the inspection is at risk. Now, the next part of the negotiation tips that I want to tell you about is, especially this works good with VA loans. Let's say you've got an offer for the house and it's exactly what you want, but there's one little trick. They don't have a whole lot of money. Usually when people have FHA and VA loans, they don't have a whole lot of funds of their own to put towards the purchase of the house. So if they've got closing costs, they've got their buyer's agent commissions, they've got their down payment. So all that stuff is going to come out of their pocket personally, and they're trying to save as much money as possible. Okay, help them out a little bit. You've got a nice product that you're selling, and it's nice enough that you got them to the table and they're making the offer. Let's help them all along a little bit. Now, a VA loan, if you haven't known about this, the new rules about a VA loan, they do not add or they do not pay for their buyer's agent commission during the purchase of the loan, but they will pay for the repairs. So sometimes what a seller can do when they're selling their house is, you want the house for $200,000. Okay, how about we make the purchase for $210,000 and I'll give you a $10,000 repair allowance or a repair concession towards the purchase of the house. Now they can do whatever they want to with that $10,000, and just kind of helps them out. You still get your net proceeds and they get a little boost to help with the down payments or the repairs or the commission. So it just kind of helps them pull in a little bit more and get a little bit more committed to following through to get to the closing table. All right, so let's talk about the next scenario. Let's say that y'all are kind of far apart on the price. They gave you an offer of $180,000 and you're insisting that you want that $200,000 in the example that we're giving. Well, $20,000 is a pretty good chunk of change, and most people don't offer that little bit. Me, I'm an investor. I'm not afraid to, do a lowball offer, and that's a lot of times that's not considered a lowball offer in my world. But in the retail world, it's almost considered an insult. By the way, if you don't get an offer at all on your house, that is the insult. So keep that in mind. The fact that they did make an offer means that there is some level of interest in your house. So with that being said, they give you an offer that you just turn your nose up at. I can't believe they even made that offer. Well, hold on a minute. Let's look at this. They did make the offer, which means they are interested. How about we sweeten the pot a little bit? What if you added some value to the house to get your $200,000? Now, the price that you're looking at is $200,000. It's not necessarily getting the house by itself for $200,000. Maybe you have some furniture that you don't want anymore. Would they be interested in it? Maybe you've got an extra car that you were getting ready to put on the market and sell anyway. Maybe they would be interested in it. What if you've got a half acre or a 3/4 or 1 acre lot and you've got this beautiful Cub Cadet sitting in the garage and you're getting ready to move to Arizona? Well, they don't have grass out there. You're not going to need that lawnmower anyway. Offer it up as an added value in order to get your $200,000. There are a lot of different things that you can do to add value to the house, and I'm going to talk about one of my favorites here in a minute, so hold on. But you can add other things to the house in conjunction with the house itself to sweeten the pot and get the price that you want. Now, one of my favorite negotiating tactics when I'm selling a house and I'm receiving offers is seller financing. Oh my God, what is that? Yeah, I know. A lot of people hear about seller financing and their eyes bug out and they're like, oh no, I can't do that. Well, you don't normally know what seller financing really involves. What is a conventional sale of a house? Okay, you are selling this house. Buyer wants to buy the house, but they don't have any money. So they go over here, they get the bank. Hey, I need to borrow $200,000. Okay, give me $200,000. They come back, they give you the money, you take off, and now they've got the house. Now they owe the bank. Well, what if you were the bank? There you go. So in normal circumstances, to keep this simple, it's easiest to do this with a house that you have free and clear, because you can give them the house, you deed the house to them, they give you back a mortgage and a security deed, and then they just make payments directly to you. There's a few benefits to this. Remember, I was telling you that you need to sweeten the pot if y'all were kind of far apart on the price versus the offer. Well, if you offer financing and they don't have to go to the bank, that is a value add. So not only can you guarantee that you're going to get your price, because instead of having this many buyers, the ones that can't go to the bank, now they're in the game. So now you've got this many buyers. So you can definitely get your purchase price. Sometimes I usually get a little bit more. But then on top of that, you also can get the interest on the loan. You're loaning them your equity out of the house. You got a $200,000 house free and clear. All that is equity. So they're paying you for your equity. They're borrowing your equity until they pay you off, just like the bank. So you can offer the loan with interest, usually about what the market rate is, 6, 7, 5, whatever. So you get the payments plus the interest. Now I know the next thing you're going to say, well, who's going to pay for the closing costs? Who's going to pay for the compensation of your services? Who's going to pay for the buyer's agent services? I know, I got you covered. So that's where the down payment comes in. Normally I ask for, I don't charge, I ask for, because it's all negotiable, 10% of the purchase price in a down payment, where you can ask for anything from 1%, 20%, you can offer 50%. You want half the money down, and then you'll finance the other half. Now, the more they put down, of course, the more serious they are. And the money that you want is going to be covering the closing costs, or they can pay the closing costs themselves separately. It's going to be paying my compensation fees, the buyer's compensation fees, and if they default, this is what everybody's worried about. Well, they're going to tear up the house. No, they're not, because they're homeowners. They're not renters. It's their house. They own it. They're loving it. They're caring for it. That pride of ownership is going to kick in. So I've never had a problem seller financing to a homeowner, because they're going to take care of the house because it's theirs. So you don't have to worry about that. But in the off chance that they do, they already paid you enough money to call up the attorney, say, hey, they're defaulting, need to foreclose, and then the attorney will take care of the legal jargon to get them to either realize that they're screwing up and they're getting ready to lose the house, and or go to the courthouse and do the outcry and foreclose on the property. Either somebody's going to pay off the loan balance and you're going to get all your money at the courthouse when it does the foreclosure, or nobody bids on it and you get the house back. Turn around and sell it again. It's not a big deal. So with that being said, the mortgage itself can be whittled around any which way you want to that makes you feel comfortable and confident that these people are going to pay, they're going to pay on time, and they're going to keep paying until the house is 100% theirs, or, which in most cases happens, in 5 to 7 years, they're going to refinance and pay you off anyway. So the first 4 or 5 years are predominantly interest. So you're making probably $15, $20, $25, $30, $30,000 more than what you would have if you just taken the cash and run to begin with. You're welcome. Okay, so the next problem that you're going to tell me about, well, I've got a mortgage on my house. No problem. If you've got a mortgage on the house, and again, I'm going to keep this simple because this is not an advanced strategies class. If you've got a mortgage on the house and you've got 70% or 80% loan to value, so you got a $200,000 house and you still owe $150,000, $160,000 on the house. They can get qualified for the $150,000, $160,000, but they can't pay you the full purchase price amount. Why don't you finance the part that's coming to you? If they can get financed for enough money to pay your loan off, then you can turn around and finance the equity that you still got in the house. That $40,000 or $50,000 that they can't quite come up with, why don't you take back a note for it? It would be a second position note, yes it would. But as long as they qualify for the total dollar amount monthly payments, you've got one loan that's $1,500, you got your loan that's $400 or $500, that's $2,000. As long as they can afford to pay the entire amount, then you're fine. As a matter of fact, that's how I bought my first rental property. They wanted $44,000 for the house. The loan would only cover $38,000. So the guy said, hey, I'll take back a second for remaining balance. So that's what we did. I got a first and a second. I paid them both, and the rents covered both of them. Now, of course, this is not investing. This is selling your personal house. But the principle still works the same. All right, so what if you price the house right, we've got the house on the market, and we get multiple offers? Well, first of all, great for us, because now you've got people that are going to compete with each other. And when multiple offers are coming in and people are competing for the same house, who wins? You do. No matter what, you win. So now that we've got a little bit of a bidding war going on, who do we choose? Well, first of all, we're going to reach out to everybody and say, hey, we got multiple offer scenario. We need you to come back with your highest and best. There you go. So now that you've got them coming back with their highest and best, or they say that was our highest and best, you know, then you go through and see which one that you want. So now comes the fun part of looking through all these offers and seeing which one you like. Now keep in mind, it doesn't have to be the one with the top dollar. Like I said, you can have a lower priced offer that's all cash, or you can have a higher priced offer that's a VA loan. Which one are you going to choose? The one that's more likely to go to closing, or the one that potentially has more bottom line? That's going to be a personal decision for you and your family. But the fact that we got those offers to the table is kudos in itself. Alright guys, so now the next step is going to be go through the rest of my videos about selling your house and make sure that you have a more well-rounded understanding of all the ins and outs of getting your house sold in Middle Georgia. So finish watching all the videos and give me a call, and we'll sit down and come up with a game plan to get a multiple offers on your house that you're selling. See you on the next one.